Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we're going to be reconfiguring this small catboat into a Spinnaker style sailboat, which I'll get into in a second, but pretty much just a little recap. On the left we have a catboat which is with a single sail, and on the right here we have, it has various names, but pretty much it's a sloop, and I think also there's like Genoa and other types of names with differences. Obviously, this is an abbreviated version, or as I like to say, a simulated version sailing boat. Both of these are, versus something that has an actual jib sail with winches and whatnot. But as I said, I kind of make my creations more simulated style than simulation. So if you ever had imitation crab meat, that's pretty much what these are. They're not the actual thing, but they'll come across such as it. So, as I said, in this version here we have a single sail. Well, what is a Spinnaker style? Before I even begin, I do want to say that I don't know how to sail. I'm not a sailor, but I do find this fascinating. So if there are mistakes, errors, omissions, anything like that, please let me know in the comments. I am keen on learning, but it is difficult without having practical experience. Anyway, as I said, Spinnaker style is where, or at least what I understand, where you have a massive sail that can catch a lot of wind and push you along the wind much faster than if you just have your regular jib and mainsails. This diagram shows it pretty well. Look how big it is. It's open kind of across the whole front. Now, this one here is called an asymmetrical Spinnaker. You can see here the wires. We have the tack line, the sheet, the guy, and in essence, with using real-life pulleys and systems, it can open the sail up quite large and gain you a good amount of speed. Without a doubt, there's more to it, and I'm sure I missed something, and I'm sure that there's people that are going to comment saying the actual things that I got wrong, which is totally fine. But here we are now looking at a diagram of how this Spinnaker works, and what I understand is you have this pole that has the Spinnaker sail, and it's attached on one end. So you see here the pole, you see the yellow sail is attached. Now you have this wire here. That wire is, we're not going to put that because we're just going to use a pivot on the center point to rotate it. And then here you have this cheek block and sheet, which I think is just a line holding the Spinnaker to this point there. And in essence, it allows it to billow open just like this, and has kind of a massive, it's like opening up a parachute, pretty much is the best way to describe it. Now, you have a bunch of wires, a bunch of things, cables. I'm not going to go into much detail, but point is you have the sail opening up very large and allowing you to ride the wind very, very efficiently. Without a doubt, there is a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, calculations, measurements, things like that. Here is a diagram of a symmetrical versus asymmetrical Spinnaker, so you can see it's pretty much how it opens up and the cabling and stuff. I'm sure more than that. I'm just talking real quick here and kind of summarizing, but in essence, obviously the symmetrical is symmetrical, this is not. And to possibly make things confusing, we also have something called a Spinnaker, and this is, in my understanding, kind of like a Spinnaker, but then you also combined it with a Genoa style sail, and it opens up in a similar way. So you see here that they talk about, even it sounds similar to a jib or Genoa sail, but we are going to see how we can reconfigure the boat to give us a big sail. So in the end, it may not be a Spinnaker, a Spinnaker, or asymmetrical, symmetrical, any of the stuff, but hopefully I have a massive parachute style sail in the front here, opened up, catching a lot of wind and pushing us forward very fast. That's the goal. So what the name technically is, I don't know, and we'll find out and hopefully learn along the way, but the idea is to see us opening this thing up and getting a nice amount of speed. Now, one thing that a comment said on another one of my videos is that the sail mast is usually longer than the length of the ship. There's other information as well, but let's just increase the size of the sail here a little bit, therefore giving us a bit more wind surface, so that's going to help us. Now, you'll know that the reel, or keel, apologies, is within the hull of the boat, but even still, we'll see if that does work. Now, the first thing I have to do actually is grab this mast and move it back. So we're gonna pull it back such that first we make more like a the sloop style sailboat. So you can see it clashes here with my helm, but I could raise this up a little and back. So that works more or less, and that will be attached to there. So that gives us the mainsail, and then we could put the jib sail. Now, I've seen various types of sailboats on the internet. You can have, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, a regular style boat with a mainsail, jib sail, and then a third one for the spinnaker. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm putting a third one rather than making my jib become the spinnaker. And from what I understood in real life, they also use different materials. So the spinnaker would be more flexible and it would kind of open up more than your regular sails. The nice thing about using a pre-existing platform is I don't have to worry about the engine or anything. I just get to worry about my sailing configurations here. So you could see the mainsail is sticking out, and I put another pivot here. And in my opinion, this would be what we attach the spinnaker to. So it would just have that there. And in essence, from the above view, when you push this out like this, at a 45-degree angle to the left, the sail will be pinned to this location, but we got to make it billow out like this. So I will have to use a winch for this actually, and I'll see how that all works. But in addition to this, I did say I do want to put a jib sail for more control and speed and stuff, so that's actually going to come out of here like this. So it does get a little confusing. We're going to have a lot of various things to kind of move around. Alright, this gives a good idea of the various bodies and components. So in blue we have the mainsail arm or boom, and in cyan here we have the jib sail. Now of course the jib sail one, it's not actually a boom or an arm in real life, it's just a series of winches and cables and things attached together, and it kind of flails around by itself. We're doing the abbreviated, the simulator style, or simulating it, rather than a proper simulation of this. So we're doing the abbreviated, the fake crab meat, if you will. And then in orange here, we have what the spinnaker sail will be attached to. So now we have three various things kind of moving around. This one is attached to a pivot on the front to give us kind of that abbreviated sailboat style jib sail, rather than it being attached to something else. But this kind of summarizes it. Now, you could see, spawning it in, I have not attached the jib sail yet fully. But what I did do is, near the top there, I actually kind of put more of these points. And these two on the outside are what the spinnaker will be attached to. Yeah, it's actually the spinnaker I didn't have, not the jib. The jib is attached and down there. So, for the spinnaker, it's going to be something a little bit different, because I want to be able to not have it open and blowing around all the time. So rather than having it like this, what I also want to do is have a hard point body, maybe right there. And then once I bring in a couple of these, we can attach a hard point connector. And this in essence will provide me with the basis of my spinnaker, just like that, and it can be unattached and then can blow around in the wind. So this and this are attached, and then go up to these ones there, and this goes to there, and this goes back down to there. So that should make it relatively like unopened, and that's kind of the idea. So it shouldn't be picking up a lot of wind. But when we release that hard point, then that member becomes free to move around, and it can move around attached to a winch. I went ahead and added a winch back here, and you can see that when I pull this, the winch is attached to this rope anchor, which is attached to this sail anchor, which is on this little part there. So once this is released, we could use the winch here to run this out or in, depending on how we want. What I envision here is when the spinnaker here is open to the port side, and then if we have ourselves some wind, and we release that connection, which is right here, this should allow it to kind of flail around as it is right now, but without having tension on that rope, it's just going to continue flailing around, like I said. So we do have to pretty much add a bit of tension in this line. So we can winch it up, and we're pulling it in. Now, in the examples that I saw, the winch was here and here on either side rather than being at the very back. At the very back, we now have that kind of more asymmetrical style sail. So that is definitely different. And now if I do this and stop and pull it again, we can fully extend it to 90 degrees. But it still is asymmetrical, pretty much due to the fact that the line is reaching its maximum or easiest path of resistance is straight right back to this point. Now if I did put the winch there, it would give me a little bit more area, and hopefully it would be open a little bit larger, and in that case it would not be totally asymmetrical like this. So one option is to put winches on either side here and here, and then probably reattach and attach the cable and then quickly reel it in. So that would probably be the more realistic approach, but I want to try something, and maybe this will rattle a lot of you, but let's just see how it works. If I put a rope pulley on the back there of the sail, first of all, yes, that looks ridiculous, but what my plan is rather than this pulley being attached directly to this rope anchor, we'll attach the rope anchor to this, and we'll attach the pulley to this. And what this will do is it will allow the mainsail to be open to provide wind, and in addition to the mainsail being open and providing wind, it's going to open up the spinnaker fully, because we'll make sure to open the mainsail and the spinnaker sail in opposite directions. So let's see how this all works. Pretty much I do have to put my mainsail out that way. Let's actually motor ourselves out from the berth just to prevent things from going weird. But pretty much if I pull that out there, alright, and then if I pull this to the left, that's the spinnaker right there, you can see, and the winch is now attaching these two. So we could stop the boat, we'll add some wind, and release this. Alright, so that looks much, much better. And now, what I can even do is start to reel this in. And by reeling it in, you can see it's using that pulley as a pivot point and pretty much opening up the sails fully towards the wind, or with the wind, and now we're using them to gain ourselves a lot of speed. So this is kind of an abbreviated spinnaker. Now, of course, the actual sailboat, it's digging into the water pretty heavily here because the mast is probably too far forward, and of course my keel is also forward, so this version may not work with the keel in this direction. I may have to move it more back towards the middle of the ship, but we are getting a 14, with a 14 wind speed, we're gaining 11 knots of speed ourselves, and that's only with 33%. Now if we turn this up like to 50, let's see what happens. Now keep in mind I didn't even turn hold heading on. Let's turn that on just to help us. Alright, so 26 and 14. So that is working. Now keep in mind that we've not used the jib sail at all, and we've not used the mainsail at all. So with this configuration, to be honest, I may scrap the jib sail altogether and have it just be a mainsail and spinnaker sailboat, just to prevent, first of all, the clash that I see here just looks a little ugly, but also you're probably going to be using this sort of system more so than what you'd imagine with using your jib and mainsails. Yeah, we're up to 15 knots in a 26 knot wind speed. So not bad. I mean, that is 50% efficient rather than 30, so it is a little bit more efficient, and that's even without the mainsail opened up. I imagine if I do open up the mainsail, that it will actually give us even more speed, just because there's pretty much another surface collecting that wind. I'm not sure if the wind is stopped by each sail, like in real life. Obviously, if you have one sail, that the wind will not pass through it, but it seems we've picked up now. We're in 25 knot wind speed. We're going 16 knots, so that extra mainsail did seem to help. Let's see about the jib sail. Well, it seems that it's going so fast that it's kind of riding inside the wave, so I do think that the keel has to be repositioned, but that's a pretty nice speed, considering we're using ourselves that wind speed. Look at that. That's awesome, actually, and a really cool configuration. I'm gonna remove this keel, and rather than having it under there, I instead am gonna try to position it on the underside of the boat, more centered. So I'm gonna do that, but I think that we have another issue, and I'm sure people are gonna comment that my sail is not centered on my boat, and I'll show you what I mean. When I go up here, you could see the sail is pretty much too far forward. It should be more towards the back, and you'll want to keep your keel kind of in line like that. So I think this should hopefully work. So that's number one. Number two, I will move this winch control just so I can use it here without falling off. So that's something that I will see in the final version if I get it working, but for now let's put that there. And this jib sail, while I do like the idea of having 3 sails and moving them around, my problem is that it just looks really busy, and will you really need to use your jib sail if you're using the Spinnaker? So like I said, I saw kind of both types of configurations in real life, on pictures, mind you, but I think that I can try to keep it like this, and this may ultimately work a little bit better for my systems. So this now looks like this looks like this. I guess I can lower this whole thing because I don't have the jib sail, so that can go there, and that can attach a little nicer to there. And then this rotates the Spinnaker left and right, so it's like port and starboard the Spinnaker. So that will be there. I think that's interesting to try out. And yes, this does look weird, but if it can help us, then I think it's worthwhile to kind of abbreviate to Spinnaker style rather than a full simulation. Now, having the winches on either side here and there would be good, but I can see it having a lot of issues. Like you see here, I had it. I could see it having issues when you disconnect, reconnect your sails, and ultimately it won't. Ultimately, I dislike detaching the ropes because you can't reel them in by hand. In real life, you can pull at the sail or at a line and tug it in yourself. Here you can't. So you'd be stuck trying to reconnect it and move it and stuff. Whereas if we keep it there in the center, attached to this pulley, it may do what I want it to do, albeit not not what you'd expect in real life, but the simulation would be there. So first things first, let's just motor ourselves out of here again. And while I'm motoring myself out, I'm going to open up my mainsail. And then soon I'm going to start opening up my jibs, the Spinnaker as well. So we'll see that. But pretty much this can be opened like that. I'm going to cut power now. And then up front, we have this to turn it. So we'll have to move this mast, or this arm, out to the starboard. So I can do that here. And that, of course, moves the rope. Alright. And now, if I release it... Oh, we're getting some phantom physics here. It's all too tight. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That is phantom physics for you guys. Alright, let's just release it. Okay. So now we got our massive, massive sail. And once I position myself here, I can start up the wind and let it pick up and start to move. Now I will attach the hold heading. And it seems that the cable, or the line there from the small winch, is fairly good. That thing is now going like left and right. It's a bit intertwined, but the idea, it seems, is there. And the sail is pretty much blowing out quite massively. Now, if I remove or reduce the line like this and allow it to kind of move up further, that would be more in line with the Spinnaker style systems, since they kind of billow out a little more forward like that. Now, of course, we do have our mainsail, but you can see now we're having 12 knots of speed for 15 knots of wind, so pretty good for the wind. Now, if I turn this up, are we gonna sink again, or kind of dig into the ground? Maybe. It is still bottom heavy, and I don't have any other stabilizers to kind of lift up the vessel. I do have these little fins, but they don't actually work. They're just there for stabilization. Well, we've picked up speed, that's for sure. Not a lot, but a little bit. And at 50% wind, we've become a submarine. So in this case, it's actually going right into the water, or right underwater. So that's not ideal. Which leads me to think, do I need to put some sort of systems to prevent this from happening? Or do I have to, or is it just not capable of withstanding this level of wind? So those are kind of the questions that I find myself asking. Do I have health? Yes, I do. Nice. So pretty much it seems to work. It seems to work fairly well, maybe even too well. And now it's billowing backward because it's actually stopping us, because we have forward momentum and it's now pushing us backwards. So interesting. I did read reports of someone saying they were able to get 40 knots out of a Spinnaker style boat in Stormworks, which is awesome. I want to try to get something like that. That'd be epic. But can we do it with this vessel and with this current setup? That I don't know. But you do see, like, whenever it digs in, it makes me worried for the front there. And yeah, I can put more anti-weight blocks, but I think that it's more so like the fact that the vessel wants to be digging in with the nose, or front or bow, rather than kind of staying upright. And you know, it may also be that the vessel just can't go past like 45% wind. Like once you hit 45, if it's more than that, then you shouldn't be sailing. You got to take down your sails, and in essence you shouldn't be out there. So that is possible too, that this sailboat isn't capable of going with such speeds. Like, take a look at this, we're also underwater now. So it may be that we have to work within kind of the bounds of Stormworks and the bounds of the physics in the game for this. So it is a really interesting style of boat, and actually I really do like, this is like the perfect coloring for this. It looks like a race boat, so if it's going fast, that's awesome. But is it what we want, and is it the style that we're trying to get? I don't know. So I'll have to do some more tests, but for using this wind power to gain this kind of speed, like, it is pretty cool. Like, yeah, we're doing 20 knots now, granted underwater, so again, a submarine, that's at 45. So is 40% wind our max? Maybe I just have to set a maximum allowable wind speed, and after that put down your sails, because you can't be going under there. Anyway, hopefully you guys found this entertaining. It was really cool to try to make a new style of sailboat here in Stormworks. I've never made a Spinnaker style in Stormworks, so it was a really cool process. Yeah, here we have it at 40%. It's pretty nice. So anyways, thank you all for watching. I do want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members, to my Discord server boosters. They will be getting an early version of this creation for them to try out and see and give comments. And to each and every one of you for watching, for being a part of the community, for contributing, and for being awesome. Thank you all. So, thank you for watching, and until next time, happy Stormworksing.